Hello, good evening. Tonight, first thing, don't adjust your TV. It's not a rerun. First thing, Happy New Year. And my name is Julius Cephas. I'm president of Local 1694-1. And I believe we're going to have a great show tonight where I have three great guests. Tonight's show is going to be basically a reflection of 2014 and 2015. But before we start a show, I like to dedicate to some great, beautiful women. As always, start off with Mabel Cephas, my mother. I just say Happy New Year to my mother. To Miss Betty Robinson, your grandson talks about you all the time. Mrs. Evans, Ray Evans' wife, and Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Anna Anderson. I'd like to say Happy New Year to all you four beautiful women. Tonight again, we are going to reflect on 14 and 15, talk about some topics. We're going to take some phone calls. I believe the phone will be working. And again, I've been going for a while, and I hope maybe now we can come back. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a great show with the guy named Dr. Payne, and he's going to talk about, he's the guy who did the research on the dropout rate in the community in Southbridge. He got the statistics. It's going to be a great show coming up, and I like to deal with data and deal with numbers. But again, thank everybody for tuning in. And I'd like my guests to introduce themselves, and then we'll start off with the questions.
Pastor Derek Johnson, and thank you for having me. Happy New Year, Julie.
You too.
Happy New Year.
Gary Hutton, thanks for having me, and Happy New Year's.
Okay.
John Flaherty, happy holidays and everything.
Okay. I wanted to just start off by talking about some of the top things that happened in 14.
It's been an eventful year.
It's been a big event, but Pastor, start off with some of the things in 14, and we're going to go down the list, and then I'll ask some questions. But
Well, I think the biggest thing is what continues now, and it's my hope that it will continue, the outgrowth of a movement which came as an outgrowth of the unfortunate decisions in Ferguson concerning the death of Michael Brown at the hands of a white police officer, and then later in New York, the chokehold situation with regard to Eric Garner, who was killed in like or similar fashion, and then the grand jury decisions or not to prosecute these men. It caused expression under the Constitution of marching and such, and unfortunately some rioting came out. But it continues until this day. I think that was the biggest event, and certainly for me the most personal event, which I'm not at liberty to talk about too extensively because of confidentiality forms I've signed. But my friend and mentor and teacher and part-time boss, Dr. Bill Cosby, and the allegations that have been made against him, which hurt deeply. So, you know, it's been an eventful year, but those are the two things that stand out.
Mr. Hutt, your family's definitely been involved in the community. My mom and your mom worked, your dad, I heard great things about him. How do you feel? What's some of your opinions about Ferguson first?
What are some of my opinions about Ferguson?
Yeah.
Well, you know, obviously, I think that the outrage that people felt by the decision not to indict the officer was justified. Clearly people, but it wasn't limited to Ferguson. We see it happen in New York. We see it happen in other parts of the country. And, you know, Wilmington's not immune. We could have the same thing here. One of the things that has interested me really has been in New York, and the pushback from the police officers against the mayor of New York. And I think that the police officers in New York and the leadership in New York were clearly wrong to encourage that kind of disrespect against their commander-in-chief. I don't think that's the right way to go. The mayor was trying to engage the community. That's his job. He's the mayor of all the people. He's not just the mayor of the police officers in New York. So, I mean, and I agree that, as Pastor D suggested, that there seems to be some energy, particularly with particularly now with some of the young folks that have been disengaged in terms of civil unrest and civil expression, that are getting more engaged now, and I think that's what we need. We've seen the whole generations of younger folks just totally, completely out of it, and I think that unfortunately it's those kinds of incidents that re-engages and re-energizes that whole young group of folks that have kind of been MIA.
Okay. John, what's your opinion?
I think we're going to see a re-examination of this shoot-to-kill policy by the police. I mean, that's how they're trained, basically, with to shoot their weapon. Do you have to kill people? Can you shoot them in the legs? I mean, what happened to tasers? I thought when tasers came in, we're going to see a lessening of shooting deaths. So it's tragic all over, but I think there's going to be some positive outcomes. And I'm hoping to see that the city of Wilmington, that we can reduce our gun violence from 28 or 29 a year, cut that in half. The city of Camden has done that. They went from 64 down to 32. So there's too much gun violence all over, on all sides here.
Okay. One of, and I'm going to try to do the best I can as far as narrating, but one of my concerns is that when the officers or somebody of another color, we tend to come out, and as we should, but we tend not to do it when it's among ourselves. And I have a strong problem with that because, again, I think that as they protest, but we don't do that when we just have regular shootings, have number of shootings. And one of my other concerns is that with the police department or anything else, anybody else, I'm the president of the union, and you have a lot of good people, but you have a few who make it bad for everybody. And you have to defend them regardless of what. I have a problem with people taking one paintbrush and painting the whole African-American community as the same. I mean, and I understand the police department on some things. I disagree with them sometimes, but again, I've been in a situation where we always holler about the no snitch clause and all that, but yet I deal with some people in our union that I got to defend knowing they dead wrong. And I think a lot of times the police, and I'm not just giving my opinion, I think a lot of times they're put in a situation where they know some of the guys or and ladies might be dead wrong, but they protect them, and we have to find a way to handle that.
Recently, the NAACP just met with the governor about the issue of body cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And about 10 years ago, I came out of a restaurant over on Scott Street,
Mm-hmm.
and within 30 seconds, I was surrounded by 8 police officers. I fit the profile of a bank robbery that happened at 9 o'clock that morning. They were looking for a white male, 6'2" with a mustache, who fled the scene on a red bicycle. And I rode, at the time, a red bicycle. And if they didn't have the video camera from that bank and comparing it to him to me, I would have been arrested for robbery that morning. So I think the issue of re-examining the shoot-to-kill policy that a lot of cops are trained in, and also having more of them wear body cameras, I think is not going to solve everything like it did with the Garner case, but it'll help in a lot of cases.
That's and this is the mistake, Julius, that not everybody, that a significant amount of people seem to make. The real issue and the substratum of this situation is that black males are being killed in record number by police officers. So when you have a pattern across the nation, whites are marching with blacks for a reason. Old people are out there for a reason. Young people are out there for a reason. The reason they are together is just like in the 60s, blacks could not ride on the front of the school bus and or the bus is public transportation, nor drink at public water fountains. In today's time, blacks are being killed at the hands of representatives of government. And I think what we as American people are saying, they being black people, are yet free, because freedom as defined by the United States Constitution is that we are one nation under God with liberty and justice for all, and that we had certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we're saying we cannot pursue being happy if numbers of us are being killed because of the color of our skin.
Okay, now let me ask a question. Then everybody, me personally, I don't think it's a good idea. Body cameras. The guy was killed in New York. The camera seen everything. What did it resolve? And then another thing. What about when people come to your house and they filming you? I mean, stuff hits. Once it goes in the clouds, I don't know if
You
that's.
think that's a privacy concern?
I'm quite sure it would turn out to be one.
Yeah.
But again, in New York, we got it on tape.
Mm-hmm.
Brian King was on tape. I don't know if that's, to me, I don't know if that's the right answer.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably part of the solution, though. But the whole question when you were talking about painting everybody with a broad brush, I don't want to paint all police officers with a broad brush.
Right.
And I don't think anybody wants to paint. Even those folks that protested against some of the actions of some of the police officers were not, in my mind, saying that all police officers racially profile or all police officers are trigger happy. That's not the issue in terms of painting everybody with a broad brush. The issue is that when you have an incident when a young African American male is killed at the hands of a police officer, that police officer should be subject to the same kind of criminal and scrutiny that anyone else is. So, I mean, those police officers, you can't say, well, he's a police officer or she's a police officer in a tough job. It is a tough job. You can't let that give them a license to kill. And when you have such a pattern of folks, of African American males across the country being murdered, then you got to address that.
That's
Yeah,
it.
but what do you think about? And then, like I said, we got a lot of topics, so we just.
But some of it you don't have to create new stuff. You have to make
Right.
the laws on the books there.
But
that
what
are
do you
now
think
work.
we need to do you have 30 African American kids being killed, but I don't see the same intensity in people wanting to hold them responsible as if it offered somebody else.
Well, it's happening, but
And that's what I have a
media-
real major problem with.
It's
And
happening.
we need to hold everybody accountable, not just
Absolutely.
the police officers.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
I take exception.
And I don't see
believe
that.
it is happening, but there is less attention and focus put on it by media. Body cameras have their value, but the governor, if what has been said is true, then the governor is making the same mistake that's been made historically. He's talking to people who don't know the issue, whether they are NAACP or not. He should be talking to the little man on the street who has been chased by police in these situations, or possibly, so that the experience now speaks to power. And what we tend to do is we will have a whole series. I've been watching so many different series of conversations about this topic, all by people who do not have our experience down here at Be Black Man Walking Down the Street level. When you talk to those of us who live it, when not those who represent a particular political ideology or what have you, but talk to the little people who are affected by it, then I think you get a more real understanding. With respect to, we're not standing up against murder and violence. I deny the existence of black on black violence. I think that violence is violence. And I know that there are, in Delaware at least, many people and organizations and churches who are taking a stand against the violence, but they get less assistance, less attention from the media, and are taken less seriously
But it shouldn't be.
than even
but
now.
it shouldn't be based on I'm gonna do this because I'm gonna get attention from the media.
Right.
That should not be.
I'm not saying it should, but it's needed, Julius. It is needed.
But it doesn't have to be based on the media comment. It should be based
But
on.
no one suggests that it
No,
does,
I'm just-
Julius.
I just
But
say
I'm
that-
saying you can't deny that part of the reason this issue has blown up over America is because of the media. The reason John F. Kennedy was forced to deal with the civil rights was because Dr. King recognized You need the media to put a spotlight on what's happening. And if the media examined our violent situation in the black community, its causes and its root causes,
Pastor, hold up.
we would get the same amount.
One of the problems I have, my concerns is that a lot of people won't do nothing unless the media's coming. If you tell somebody we're gonna have a rally over here, if they think the press is not coming, they won't show. So, but okay, let me go to another one. This is going to a different. You want to say something, John?
Well, there's so many issues out there, and it has a life-saving. Look at that bombing in Pakistan, that school, 133 kids killed. That's yesterday's story. The killings in Australia. I mean, there's so many issues, and they're popping up every other day that it's easy to get distracted and waylaid unless you have a laser-like focus on one issue.
Okay. Now, like I said again, we're going to be on different issues that happened in the past, and then we'll go to the future. What do y'all think about medical marijuana and the state not making any money for the state? Like in Colorado, I believe they're making a lot of money off the state, but I think this is going to be to a private or nonprofit groups. I'd like to hear y'all's views on medical marijuana and the profitability or lack of profitability.
Now, didn't Colorado and Washington legalize marijuana? I think it's more than just medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Those are not medical. That's marijuana across the board.
Marijuana across the board.
In our state, we had medical marijuana passed in 2011. And what held it up from being implemented here in Delaware wasn't anything in Delaware. It was directives came down from D.C. that they didn't want to see that happen in Delaware. So they disallowed any kind of business deductions. If you were a businessman, you're going to be involved in dispensing marijuana, you can forget about any kind of tax deduction on your return. You wouldn't be allowed to use the financial institutions to deposit your money. All kinds of hassles came down. So I think that if marijuana is a legitimate medical and it passed in Delaware, it's legitimate for certain medical maladies, that should be allowed.
Okay.
And,
now, what about?
I see the other end of it.
Let me see, you can answer this after this. What do you think that I'm gonna make $100 billion, but I'm not profit?
Well, I agree that the use of medical marijuana is both humane and sensible, and it should stop right there. I don't believe the government ought to be involved in selling marijuana for non-medical use or sanctioning the selling of marijuana, and not so much because of the harm that the marijuana would do or that people can't make money off of it. It's just that government, everything it has deemed illegal, it has not only prohibited, but then it's come out and taken it over. Alcohol prohibition, and now liquor stores can stay open on Sunday. The number runners, when we were coming up, the number man, and he was a bad guy, he was a criminal. Now we got state-sponsored numbers, the lottery, and so now we're going to have state-sponsored marijuana. I just think it's wrong for us. If it was wrong years ago, if it was wrong then, it's wrong now. But for medical purposes, we do have medical marijuana ability in the state of Delaware, and I think that's as far as it should go.
But a bill's going to be, I think Helene Keeley's putting in a bill to legalize marijuana. So that'll be coming up January, February, March.
We had a good show with two young ladies on air, and I learned a lot. And it was a great show with medical marijuana, and I would like to bring them back this year, because now we got some TV time, and I would like to bring them back and let them see where they're at to this day.
Well, would you buy something if it was regular, just not medical, but it was legal to have marijuana?
How about this? Let me get a mirror and ask yourself.
I'll answer the question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I didn't take it personal when you said, people don't show up unless the media does. But listen, I'm saying I was trying to make a point that if marijuana is legal, most of us who have been there and done that probably wouldn't be going to buy weed. You know what I mean? Because we remember the negative ramifications of weed. I don't think if it's legalized, you're gonna see a bunch of us running to get some weed. Now the young people may go whoopee, but only until the finance runs out of it and they cannot profit from it. Then they're gonna say.
But there is a whole different public policy issue about the ramifications of prohibition of drug use and how that feeds organized crime.
Right.
The same way it did with the prohibition of alcohol. So the whole question, but I don't think that's what your question was about, was it, Julius? Were you talking about should it be taxed?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
Oh, tax.
yeah. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the money
For marijuana,
aspect,
for medical,
to build
should
the
medical
roads,
marijuana
to build
be
the streets,
taxed?
to build the roads, to take some of the burden off the regular, help with the safety issues out here in the state.
Well, marijuana's been legalized in Colorado and I think in Washington, and that's
yeah.
generated all kind of tax revenues for those states that they've used to support their budgets.
Right.
Now, whether or not the government wants to get in that business, I mean, it's like anything else. Once the government allows it, they're going to tax it. Any other kind of.
But it's nonprofit. The one right now, what I'm hearing is nonprofit. So I don't know how much they can tax. And it's
Well, you can tax as a commodity. You can not tax the organization if they're
right.
tax-free.
They can
You
still-
certainly
they can
tax
still
the
tax.
commodity.
Yeah.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, he's that CNN doctor. He did a whole series about
Yeah.
medical marijuana. And he came away, he changed his viewpoint from being opposed to medical marijuana to being for it after he saw how it could really help a lot of children, say, who have cystic fibrosis and diseases like that. So,
Cancer patients.
yeah,
and so.
cancer patients.
But again, that's
And
medical.
I think when you look at, if you were to talk to Senator Henry, part of what prompted her to support medical marijuana in Delaware is because she realized the medical benefits
right.
under the right circumstances.
Right.
To use marijuana as treatment, like I'm more afraid of OxyContin than I am marijuana.
Right.
But it is awkward. If you have marijuana here in Delaware and you go down to Virginia, you could get arrested for having marijuana. So
Right.
it's very awkward having this patchwork quilt of laws, and
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Well, I mean, they're looking at the neighboring states to Colorado are now arguing that the legalized recreational marijuana is making it into those other states.
Right.
And it's creating additional burden on their law
That's right.
enforcement
Yeah.
agent, and they're starting to sue Colorado.
Yeah, that's a
for
good
that
point. I think
stuff.
it's
Swelling
Nebraska and
their
Oklahoma.
prison
Yeah.
numbers.
Right.
Also, too, like I said again, sorry because we probably gonna need 2 hours for this show, but because there's so many things. But I want to also, we talk about our legislators and J.J. Johnson and what he did with the compost at the Port of Wilmington, and not just him, but he had the support of the community. And I tell people all the time, when you organize, it ain't about race. When you organize and you get out there, and it took him a few years, and they now this. Well, I heard they are appealing it, but J.J. Johnson, my hat goes off to you. And I'm gonna tell you, I used to get headaches down there. I mean, serious headaches. And when legislators, he was on top of it. And it was just a good thing. And, my hat goes off to J.J. and everybody else in the legislation hall who supported J.J. What do y'all think about that compost down there at the Port of Wilmington?
Well, anybody who's driven across 495 Bridge can tell you it doesn't smell that good. But, it came here with a lot of promise. You're going to take all this expensive food waste from these restaurants, and they're paying like $60 a unit to get rid of it, take it down to the port and put it underneath this Gore-Tex tent-like structure, and you pay $30, so it's a lot cheaper for restaurants. They sold it way too high. They said no odors, no this, no that, and it came out to be just the opposite of what they were telling everybody. And so when you have something like that, you got to be upfront with the difficulties, and they weren't.
Right.
And it really is.
I like the idea that you all, with your leadership and J.J. Johnson's office and ability to help, that the port is now receiving not all of the support and attention that it needs, but it's getting there. And by you all working together as you are on these issues and staying on it, we cannot afford to allow the Port of Wilmington to be sold off, to not be functional. It has represented jobs here in Delaware, the economy of Delaware for years. And I think it has a lot to do with who's in the leadership, yourself, JJ and others, able to look past and work together and preserve the integrity.
Well, this
of
young
the
man
port.
right here, he was our lobbyist. And I'm sorry, mind me saying it.
Him and his brother together, or just?
Nah, that's another topic. But he did an awesome job, and he He took our committee to Dover. He took us everywhere. And what people don't understand, the port created, it's 16,000 jobs created from the spinoff of the port. But what people also don't know is that we got 2 new cranes coming. We're going to fly to Germany. We got 2 new cranes. We also, in the Sunset Committee, they're ready to build, they're ready to expand. They got $250,000 for permits. They're going to start building more warehouses. And this is the Wilmington port. It's a lot of things that's happening that hasn't been really making the news. That it's been a lot of work. I see great things for the future. I mean, like anything else, you still got to work and make it happen. But Gary, you was there. There was a lot of people involved, and again.
No, I wouldn't underestimate your leadership in that. I mean, I know John, and certainly you can look to other elected officials that you had to rely on. But I wouldn't diminish. Sure. I know you're not going to sit up here and beat your chest, but I wouldn't diminish your leadership and your vision and the importance of maintaining a port and continuing to work to make that port grow and make it better. I mean, when we look at it now, one of the big issues that we have to be confronted with in the city of Wilmington, and certainly in the state of Delaware, is creating job opportunities. We've been hit hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost Chrysler, we lost General Motors. We look at some of the labor unions, and we look at like 199, and we see the work that is. The amount of 199 moved down the side of the city of Wilmington and moved down to Newark, and we look at the blue collar jobs that we've lost in the city of Wilmington and in the state of Delaware. And if we were to lose, even if we were to keep the port active, and we move in the direction where we're moving away from a port that requires a lot of hands, that is labor intensive, where you're still creating more job opportunities for folks. I mean, I would hate to think about the impact on the city.
It's a lot of great things happening with the port, and I see a good future. But also too, let's talk about McDonald's, and I'm on the low wage task force, and we're talking about creating. McDonald's and these other serious corporations are making billions and only paying these guys $7 to $8. And we're trying to come up with something with Senator Marshall's leadership to give them, I call it living wage, not minimum wage, a living wage. John, what do you think about these big corporations making billions of dollars and not sharing the wealth?
Well, it looks like nothing's going to happen nationally, particularly in light of the election results in November with the Republicans taking over the Senate.
Right.
Senator Marshall's minimum wage increase bill, I think, goes up to $8.50 in June 30th. It didn't take effect January 1st. So I think that issue is going to be revisited again, but it's very difficult because there's a hardcore group in the state legislature that feels that is going to hurt businesses, not help businesses. So we'll have to see. But once that increase gets taken into effect, then I think it'll probably become an issue probably in January. But it may certainly come back before that.
Okay. Can we go to a commercial and then we can continue on with this? All right, thank you. We just found out that I have to use my cell phone. I left it in the car, so it won't be happening. But now they're still going through transition. And I'd like to thank LAPA's board and Ms. Congo and Ms. Bruce and everybody's on LAPA's board because, again, a lot of our success as far as the Port of Wilmington has to do with LAPA being so very supportive of us. But what I want to go to now, let's talk about politics and what do y'all see as far as, we'll start with the governor's race, and what do y'all see coming up as far as the governor's race and different things like that?
Well, I think if Biden runs, he'll probably get the nomination for the Democratic Party. For the Republican, was it Colin Benini, I think is running, State Senator Colin Benini. So, a lot can change. 8 years ago, or 6, 7 years ago at this time, Hillary Clinton was the odds-on favorite to run in 2008, and an unknown senator from Illinois came up and got the nomination. So anything can happen.
Hello.
Yeah, on the governor's race, I think that there are a number of candidates out there. I think that clearly, if Bo is a candidate, clearly Bo is probably the front runner right now. But I'm sure that there are other folks looking at it and trying to determine and trying to position themselves to run for governor. I think that if it were a Bo Biden, Kyle Benini race, I think that Bo would be the next governor. So we'll see.
Pastor.
I agree that Bo would probably be a shoe-in for the Democratic nomination on the Democratic side. I don't believe it should be that way. I don't think any politician should be so comfortable with his or her chances to win. I think that the people are far more intelligent and interested than they have ever been. Therefore, there is a strong possibility that if, for health reasons or other reasons, Bo does not run, I think we're looking at a possible Gordon surprise. I think we're looking at, on the Republican side, a surprise, because there are other Tea Party kinds of personalities and people inside of the Republican Party. So I think that we all should take a look at the trend and what has happened with the current Democratic power machine, so to speak, and ask ourselves, is it really working, or do we continue to support that agenda, or do we now take each vote seriously, make each vote count, and go some other ways?
I think Pastor D is absolutely right. The question really, in my mind, shouldn't be about who the next personality is, because whoever the personality is, that doesn't necessarily change the agenda. For those folks that see themselves or envision themselves as progressives or grassroots community organizers, I think the issue is bringing together an agenda and pushing that agenda. And I've always felt that folks should not be looking at politicians based on, I like this one better than I like that one.
Right.
They really should be looking at it based on who can carry the agenda that they, or who will advance the agenda that's closer to what we believe in.
Yeah, I like to say, add my
You're
little.
so hung up on personalities.
Yeah, I like to add my 2 cents. I agree with you. I like to add my 2 cents in it as far as who I think is going to be the governor. I think I look at the situation, and I don't think Bo is running. I just my opinion, but Matt Dent to me reminds me of the San Antonio Spurs. And let me y'all laughing, but let me explain why.
Somebody laughing at Matt Dent.
No, but let me explain why. The San Antonio Spurs is that they always hang around. They ain't fast. They not flashy, but they always hang around. And in the fourth quarter, they always win the damn game. And I just think Matt is somebody that you can't underestimate. He seems, like I said, the San Antonio Spurs, every year, everybody say they too old. They say this and that, and then they always hold up the trophy. He's just one. Then you have
John
Gordon.
Carney.
You have John Carney. You have Gordon, of course. Gordon, he said he's not running, which, I mean, I think Gordon has always taken care of the people. I mean, Gordon reminds me of the people's champ. But, you know, now what about, okay, let's go to Lieutenant Governor.
Well, we don't have a lieutenant governor right now.
Right, we don't have one.
What y'all think in 16?
In New Jersey, when their governor resigned, McGreevey, he was replaced by the head of the state senate. So hopefully nothing will happen where Markell will have to vacate it. But I think that should be an issue, to put something in place where you don't have a vacancy like what we have now.
Right.
But that answered my question.
What's your question about who's
what do you
gonna
think?
He's talking about who's going to be lieutenant
Who's gonna
governor
be-
after the
who's gonna
election
run?
at 16.
Right, 16.
2016. Well, you know, it's.
I mean, just
it's
the
nothing-
idea what you think. That's all. It does,
Well, let me give you a story. Back in 1960, the mayor of Wilmington went to the National Convention and voted for Lyndon Johnson over John Kennedy. It was an all-Catholic delegation. Johnson was a Protestant. When he came home, he was the mayor. They said, "Mr. Mayor, we're going to promote you to lieutenant governor." and he was kicked out of the mayorship. He ran for lieutenant governor and got elected. It's not the kind of position a lot of people really seek, because a lot of cases
Who's
they're
that?
So
Eugene Lamont.
All right,
You're
so
better saying who wants to be chairman of the
I
board.
can see I'm not going to get an answer with that, but let's try something. Let's try something we all can.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard anybody who said they want to be lieutenant
What
governor
about,
in
okay,
2016.
what do y'all think is happening in the city as far as the mayor's race, the city council president? What do y'all think is going on with council? Do y'all see anybody coming up? What do y'all think? And let me know, the cat seems like it got y'all's tongue.
I mean, look, I don't care who's mayor. It's a tough job to have.
Right.
And I think Dennis Williams has done a good job considering all the circumstances. I don't blame him for any of these shootings and stuff like that. You know, he's a former police officer. He wants the city to thrive and to do well. But it's tough being mayor. Look at the DuPont company here over 100 years, and they're leaving the headquarters, going out to Chestnut Run. So there's a real issue about the financial viability of Wilmington in the long term. And he's lucky now that he has a real friendly county executive in there, Tom Gordon, who has helped out quite a bit. So
I think Mayor Williams wants to do a good job. This is his home. We grew up with and under him, and I know that in his heart of hearts, he wants to do a good job. But being mayor of the city of Wilmington is more a city manager's role, and therefore the people you surround yourself with are very important. And I don't know that the mayor has a team of people in whom he can trust to tell him to his teeth what he needs to hear. And that's what you gotta have in order to be mayor. Now, I think Maria Cabrera on the city council is somebody, when you talk about underestimating and sleeping somebody, I believe that she is somebody you better not sleep, and that the Hispanic vote and their numbers could very well take care of her, and the significant amount of African Americans in the community already feel good about her. I do believe that there is still room and it is still time for some person formerly incarcerated, et cetera, to announce and to run for office and to lift the boats at the bottom up and cause them to have hope and believe in something from the prison to the mayor's office.
Now, would you, because of what happened to you the last time, do you think you might want to go to the Supreme Court and get a real ruling?
Right. Well, we certified the question shortly after the Board of Elections. My friend Ozzie Hall, who is from Delaware, came home and assisted me along with a law firm. We've just been quiet about it. And we now know that the Board of Elections was actually in error. We were, the Attorney General never said I couldn't run. He said it was his opinion. And we didn't challenge it. So, you know, a Pastor D or Derek Johnson candidacy is not something that my wife and I have agreed on, and it's not something that I would do without her permission or support. But there, again, needs to be a candidate that's not traditional, that has the ability to stop the violence and turn back and cause a rise of a city spirit. We haven't had a city spirit in a long time. We haven't had a rhythm and a beat that we're tied to and feel good about being Wilmingtonians. And I believe this will bring whites back into the city, blacks up to appreciate the value of the city and the system, and we will all come running to one another if in fact we have that kind of candidate.
Okay. Now what I'm gonna do, okay, charter schools. And we had a great show. We had Council President Theo Gregory, Nancy Willing, and the president of I think was the Red Clay.
I can't answer the mayor question.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Hey,
He's gonna run.
Jump in. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, look.
Everybody seemed like they were scared to
no,
talk.
I'm not scared to talk about that. Who am I scared of?
No, great.
No, I mean it's hard being. They're right. It's difficult. It's a very difficult job being the mayor of the city of Wilmington, and I don't think anybody sitting on this panel wants to see an increase in gun violence. Everybody sitting here tonight, and everybody's been down here, wants to see a reduction in the violence. We would like to see this gun violence go away, but it didn't start with Mayor Williams. It's been around for the numbers have been escalating for 25 years. I mean, they really have. Are they worse now than they've ever been? Well, per capita, probably our population is down. The population went down under the previous administration. The population went down. Under the previous administration, the population, that was the first time in the last 30 years we've seen a decrease in the population in the city of Wilmington. And I mean, with all due respect, Pastor, to have a turnaround in terms of white citizens moving back to the city of Wilmington, they were the largest group that we've lost over the last 12, 14
Exactly.
years. They were, I mean, and to turn that around, you got to turn the environment around to bring folks back into the city.
But that's one.
Whether they be white or middle class blacks. I got a lot of friends that
Yeah.
don't want to live in the city anymore.
Yeah.
But that's one of the.
We all have friends that don't want to live in the city anymore.
Why are you looking at me? But let me say this to you. One of the shows that we're going to do is called Black Flight.
Right.
Everybody talks about white flight.
Right.
We're going to talk about black flight,
Right.
and that show's coming up. And you know,
But black folks are no different than white folks. Everybody wants the best environment for their
Sure.
family.
I
But
understand.
And if it's a bad
think
environment
the
for their
election
family,
of
they're going.
Barack Obama, I think the election of President Obama and the way he was elected is a lesson for local politics for us all. That hope has a place. That when people know I'm the change I've been waiting for and feel a part of. There's been a falling away from Barack since he was elected president, but when he ran, people trusted in the vision, and I believe when we have a candidate that has the vision, that has the dynamic, that has the root answer, that we can cause people to want to be a part of that.
There's a couple things I want to get to. One of them is charter schools versus public schools. We did a great show. Like I said, we had Nancy and them on there, President Theo Gregory. I told everybody, I think the next 10 years there won't be no public schools. It's gonna be, and I've said that. Everybody laughed at me. Now people can see. John, and I'm gonna go this way. Talk about charter schools, and I think Nancy and them are doing a heck of a job trying to fight this. But we've been telling people, trying to warn people. Go ahead, John.
Well, you know, I listened to John Kowalko, the state legislator from the 25th district. He's been a big supporter for public education here in Delaware. And I graduated from PS DuPont, and I guess you went to PS and you went to Howard. Where'd you go to high school? St. Mark's? Oh, Delaware. Okay, you were lying there. I think the more charter schools we have, the less funding is going to be there for regular public schools. But people they're voting with their feet. You know, I was reading B.B. Coker's column yesterday about the Moyer Academy and her efforts to try to keep it open. So I think in certain cases, and I hope she's successful with that you can keep that school open. That you have kids that can't make it in other schools, maybe they can make it in charter schools. But I think we got to be careful. We don't undermine public schools here in Delaware by having too many.
But we've seen a whole lot of examples with charter schools, and you mentioned Moyer Academy, and Moyer Academy has had its problems. There are other charter schools that have gone out there and they just haven't performed. So I mean, to think that the charter school is the solution, or an effective alternative to the public schools, I don't think we're there yet.
What do y'all think about this here? And everybody talks about college, which
Most
is great.
charter schools are racial identifiable.
Nobody talks about trade schools. I see these kids coming down the port working, fixing the roofs. These kids are making, they're 19 and 20, they're making $50,000 an hour with benefits.
I've been a big proponent
Trade
of vocational education.
And nobody's talking about it.
Well, we
Our
should be
kids
talking
are losing
about it.
out. The trade, not only that, my nephews, they do electrician work. When they get off their regular job, they can do their part-time job, go out there and fix houses and stuff, but let's get some trade charter schools. I don't hear nobody talking about that.
Well, and a lot of our kids can't even get into the existing vocational schools at Howard and Dell.
Trade is where it's at.
A lot of those kids that go to those trade schools, they come out they graduate from high school making a fairly decent
And they don't have the debt
and they don't have the debt of college. Right.
Yeah.
If they decide to go to college, they can work and pay their way through college.
Right.
Instead of accumulating all that debt. But one of the things that we've done, and I've always said this, and a lot of my friends don't like it, is that we define success based on whether or not our kids go to college, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
We should be looking at where our kids' passions are and what kind of things they gravitate to. So if you got a kid that likes tinkering with cars or fixing houses or doing plumbing work, why aren't you encouraging them to go to? Plumbers make a lot more than a lot of other college graduates.
These kids I've met down in Port, they'll come there and do the roofing and the pipe. These guys are making $50 an hour at 19 years old.
They're making good money.
19 to 20 years old.
And
Yeah.
we're not encouraging enough of our kids, I don't believe, into the vocational school district, and we're not really paying nearly the attention that we should be paying
And I
to
like to see-
vocational education.
Yeah.
I think charter schools are the new liquor stores. It's the new liquor store. Everybody. I was invited to Philadelphia to see a charter school model that's headed for Wilmington. You got charter schools coming out the ears. I'm a product of the proud dynamiter of PS DuPont. And I believe that the best time, at least for African American people, was when we had PS Howard, Dilla Ward, Del Castle, public schools. Absolutely nothing wrong with public schools. Many of us who have blazed the way into business, into corporate world and college, and even vocation. I remember time Howard had a vocational aspect. It was so big to us when people left PS DuPont and went to Howard to learn how to cut hair. You remember that? It was big, man. We would watch them leave school out of the window just to see them going to Howard to learn barbering and other trades. We need to make the public school system stronger and put the money in the schools and stop the busing at 6 o'clock in the morning. But not turn to the new liquor store concept and have one on
I
every
totally
corner.
agree, John.
Julie, this
go ahead.
issue's been going on for at least 100 years. Sylvester Wolford, a African-American historian from Newark, he sent me a series of articles about the debate back in 1910, 1912 with Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois.
W.E.B. Du Bois.
You know, education, liberal education versus trade.
Trade.
So it was much more than that back in 1910, but essentially it was blue collar versus white collar type thing.
But they were both right.
And that's the thing. I think they're both right. And I
They're
think when you
both
can
right.
find somebody who got the book smarts and can fix something, you got something there. But I think we need to start looking at charters. And John, we've only got a couple of minutes. Talk about transparency down in Dover. And again, we need more time, but
Well, transparency allows all of us to make an evaluation about whether the actions of a public official is good, bad, or indifferent or whatever, and that's why we need to have transparency. I was just reading a story about some Alaska legislators who had to sign a secrecy agreement to go to a meeting about a pipeline. Well, they should not have gone, and that should not be allowed. But with the advent of news media and shows like this, we're able to bypass a lot of the secrecy that occurs by discussing it in a public way. And with Twitter and the internet, I think we're going to see much more transparency, whether the public officials want that or not.
okay. We only got less than a minute. Again, I'd like to thank my guests. I'd like to thank my guests for coming on. Again, I will have, I think it's twice a month. Again, we're going to have a great show. I believe it's on the 18th, and it's going to be Dr. Payne. This guy is research at University of Delaware. You got to tune in and have your kids tune in. And again, thank you. We're back. Thank Lapa, and I call her Dr. Bather, Miss Ruth. Watch her show. She's awesome, and she got a lot of great ideas. Again, thank everybody. Love you, Mom, and see you in a couple weeks. Thank my guests. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Jim.